Well, hello, friends. Thank you so much again for joining us for another conversation this week. I am here with my girl, Taylor. Taylor, how are you?
I am so good, as always. We just got off an incredible interview with Rick and Sarah Pendergraft of Penn Weddings. They are our last all-star guest, wrapping up our all-star series that we started early spring, and it has just been so fun talking to the industry's leading planners, photographers, and filmmakers. And I think that they were just like the perfect little ribbon to put at the end of the series.
Yeah, this series was kind of like Taylor's baby, and it's been so amazing. If you guys liked this series and you want us to do it again, like next summer, definitely let us know. Send us a DM, give us some feedback on what you enjoyed, maybe some guests that you would love to see next year come on. We love to hear from our listeners. If you guys are ever like on your way to a wedding and tag the Level Up Co. to whichever podcast episode you're listening to, or if you're just editing at home, it's so fun to be connected with you guys in that way. I loved this series, and I'm a little bit sad that it's over.
I know. I am so sad. But I will have to say, we have some really great content that we've already recorded coming up to be put out over the next couple weeks and months. And you guys, we're going from, I feel like the All-Star series was very like story time, inspirational. And now we're kind of pivoting and it's very like actionable podcast episodes talking about branding, social media, like all these things. So we love it all, but a huge shift is kind of about to happen, which we all like new seasons. So I think it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. Paul and I are just kind of coming off of our really busy season. We had the busiest April, May, and June. So I'm excited for a little bit of rest and recovery heading into the summer. And it is a little bit of a strange year. Right now, we're still sitting at 10 weddings. And Rick and Sarah talked a little bit about how their year's looking. And so we can't wait for you guys to hear from them. We talked all about adapt or die, and how they've have adapted in their business over the last, what was it, 15,
15?
16 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what an incredible journey and business that they've built. And it's still just full force ahead for them. So we know that you guys will love this conversation. Let's dive into it.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich,
And I'm Kelly Gilster of 618 Studios.
and we are on a mission to help wedding filmmakers and photographers level up their businesses so you can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here.
Well, Rick and Sarah, we are so excited to be having this conversation with you guys today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
having
you.
us.
Rick and Sarah, this is kind of like a full circle moment for me because you've been in the industry longer than Paul and I have, which is kind of rare now. I think for people to, this is our 14th year, and you guys have been in it for how long?
15.
15. We were
Okay.
shooting on tape back when
Yeah.
we first started, which is astronomical to think of right now at this very moment. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were.
15th official year. I guess we actually shot our first weddings 16 years ago.
Yeah, I don't
but
think we're official OGs or anything, but we're right under the OGs.
I don't know. You're OG than my book.
Yeah, you are.
thanks.
That's incredible. Okay, so you started shooting on tape, and I just have to say that perfectly sums up what we're going to be talking about today, which is kind of this concept of adapt or die. Obviously, not only has technology changed a lot over the last decade or two, but so has the industry, the way we form relationships, even kind of
Mhm.
the rise of social media, specifically Instagram. And there's so much that no matter which facet of the industry you serve, you've really had to truly adapt or kind of dissolve over time. And I would love to
Yeah.
dig into some of that with you guys. But just in case anyone listening is not super familiar with you and your business, can you just give us a brief overview? Where are you based? Who do you serve? All of that good stuff.
We are based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes, anytime we tell people Tulsa, we often get, oh, so Arizona. We're like, no, that's Tucson. So we're right in the middle. And we are mostly destination weddings. We still do a little bit of work in Oklahoma each year, but we're mostly around the country or international. We are I wouldn't say fully like in the luxury sector. We still have a lot of weddings where we're the splurge, which is one thing we might even talk about later. But we're, a lot of our weddings are either pretty big blowouts at home or like multi-day destination, the kind of thing where they're taking their couples out on the water or on hikes. So we really love that kind of stuff. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. We'd love to work at home if someone wants to
we
let me
like
sleep in my
sleeping in
own
our own
bed.
bed before and after a wedding. That's a nice treat when it happens.
That's amazing. So did you say how many weddings are you guys typically doing? Where's your sweet spot?
That's right. Right now we are at a goal of 8 a year, max 10. And
Okay.
we're sitting at 5 for the year, which is kind of like weird to be at this point and not at that number. But I know a lot of people have talked about how this year has just been a little weird. So we're still happy with where we are because the 5 we do have this year, we are so excited about.
Yeah,
That's
I would
good.
way rather have 5 I'm super excited about than 10 where I'm kind of like so-so about them. And
Yeah.
sometimes the price point's even better anyway. So you're making more, working less. It's all happy.
Yep. Exactly.
Mhm.
That's great. And what are your collections kind of looking like? What are your deliverables? And we could even kind of go back to like what deliverables used to look like as you've adapted over time, because our deliverables have changed so much since we first started in 2010. But what is it right now that you're kind of building for your clients?
Right now we start at 19.5, and that is for 2-day coverage. That's 3 hours rehearsal dinner or welcome party, and then 10 hours on the wedding day. We deliver our base is a 5 to 8 minute highlight film, and then we do also include full ceremony and full toast and full first dance. From there, it's just an a la carte menu. If people want to add more hours or have a longer creative edit, add a social media teaser, trying to think of some other things, add content creation, like we will, put that in there now, in hopes of being in control of that if it happens. We do film, we do Super 8 and 16 millimeter. So we have a pretty robust a la carte menu on top of just that base offering.
And back in the
Amazing.
day was kind of crazy. I think about what Sarah did back in the day, because at that point it was pretty much Sarah did all the editing.
Before Rick joined me full-time.
I had a full-time job of my own, and sometimes that job took me away from wedding days where I couldn't work during certain parts of the season. But we were delivering a full film for every wedding, right? That was almost 30,
like a 20 to 30 minute creative edit.
Yeah,
and
that was
a
us
highlight
too.
on top of that.
Yeah,
and,
and then, so a highlight on top of that.
And doing 25 to 30 weddings a year back then.
Yeah, I think our peak was 2 or 3 years in a row. We had 32.
Yeah.
And that was right around the time that Rick left his job. It was like, okay, this is the point where that decision has to be made. I'm either hiring someone else or you're quitting your job. And we had just booked our first Mexico wedding at that point. And Rick goes, well, I don't want someone else going to Mexico with you. He's like, I'm quitting my job. All right.
FOMO will do it every time.
That's right.
Yep.
And I remember a story that sticks out in my mind is I had a friend who was on the radio. He did sports in Oklahoma City, and I was listening to him.
This is going way back.
I was listening to him on talk radio, and he was getting married, and I was in the shower actually, and he was like, if I can just find someone to shoot to video my wedding for less than $3,000, I would be happy. And so I didn't even towel off, and I jumped out, got my phone and go, I'll do it for $1,000. And he was like,
this was like pre-official company.
Right.
Even,
we were still charging below 1,000, just trying to get our feet on the ground. And I was so excited for $1,000 on that day. And you'll see a lot of people on threads, how you guys got to raise your prices. You got to do this, you got to do that. And when people are like, well, I'm charging $1,000 for it, and online, well, people get on them for charging so little. And I just remember how excited I was that $1,000 was big money to me at the time. And so it's all in perspective.
Everyone starts somewhere, but don't forget to grow. Don't forget to advance when the time is right.
It's so true. And you have to build your portfolio somehow. Like you're not going to right out of the gate be booking 5-figure weddings. That's just not how it works. And also I actually like that you said that, like we can't compare what we're charging, because you guys living in Oklahoma, I'm sure the cost of living is significantly lower than specifically like Kelly living in Orange County, so it's like that'll obviously like have some sway on how things are structured or how many weddings you take on, things like that too. So I like looking at things like that so we can end the comparison game. We're all running our own race.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's actually, since you said that, we were having a conversation with Luke with Light Cannon Films the other day, and like they're killing it right now. And he was thinking kind of the same thing, that we were in a position like 10 years ago where you're looking at certain people who've been doing this so much longer and thinking, oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
guys.
we have a cat jumping on our laps
Cat
here.
just clawed me to death.
He wants to
My
know why
apologies.
he's not being held right now. Um, Looking at people who've been doing it longer than you, who you know, already, like the minute you got in the industry, it was someone you knew and respected, and going, well, if they charge this, how can I charge this? There's no way I can charge that if they're charging that. And I think a lot of that comes from a place of humility. So, I mean, I would like tell people, stay humble, but also strike when the iron's hot. You know, if this is the right time for you, don't miss when you have a window like that, when your name is getting on a lot of lists, or you're booking these incredible weddings and planners are referring you. Don't miss that opportunity to go, okay, I am worth this. And it's, you know, test the waters at least. I think it's important to stay humble, but also know when it is time to raise your prices or make this change in your business and say, yeah, this is the right time for me to do this.
Well, let's talk about that. So for you guys in your business, what was that turning point that made you kind of like maybe your aha moment where you're like, we are worth more, like we can scale? Because now starting at, what did you say, 19.5? If that's a significant starting price.
Yeah, we had a couple. One took a while to catch up to us, really. We had somewhere around like 2013, 2014, 2015, we had a big jump in following and some of the weddings we were booking. We had our first multi-million-dollar weddings those years. And we had one with a really great planner, really great planning team, loved working with them. This wedding was probably, I don't know, I'm guessing it was 2.5 million. And they loved the video and tried to refer us a bunch after that. And every time they tried to refer us, we were already booked. And at the time, I made the mistake of thinking, well, they'll see how in demand we are, and now they'll know they need to reach out sooner. Yep. Instead of, maybe we should raise our prices so we're not booked up with all these smaller weddings. And yes, when I say smaller, I mean, I am just speaking like budget-wise, team-wise, wonderful people, wonderful clients, but still we were filling up our calendar with these smaller weddings. So when these planners came calling with a much bigger budget.
And at the time, I think we were $4,000 or $5,000
yeah,
a wedding. And
so that was around 4 something then.
Yeah. And
4 or
we
5.
thought that was like, well, that's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
For, you know,
and we were still probably averaging around 8 back then. Yeah. This is over 10 years ago. But yeah, it took a while to realize, oh, no, it wasn't that they're going to go, ooh, we need to call them sooner, they're so in demand. It was, we're going to stop calling them because they're never available.
Yeah.
And it took a while for that one to hit and go, shoot, I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. And that it goes back a little bit to what I was saying about striking when the iron's hot. We had this really great window of things like going viral. We had a surprise wedding. We had a wedding that was like on the Today Show. We had a bunch of things happen in this 2 to 3 year span of time that really put our name out there. And we didn't jump on it because we were playing the comparison game, because we were saying, well, so-and-so charges this, there's no way I can charge that. Instead of going, we've worked hard, we have earned where we are now, and it's okay to raise our price. So that one was definitely, it took a while to hit. And when it did, it was like, all right, well, I mean, lesson learned. You take the lesson and you move on. But then we also, most of our networking up until 3 years ago was video or photo specific outside of a local group. We did have a local group we were in, we loved, it was a great group for a while, but eventually some of us just outgrew it. We wanted to keep growing our business, and a lot of people were happy staying with where they were, which is fine. But it took this community we had built with other vendors and kind of went, okay, well, that community is not going to refer us anymore because of our price point. So at that point, all the relationships we had built nationwide, or most, from networking, were just photographers and videographers, which we had wonderful friends and we did refer each other, but it kept us from understanding a whole other side of the industry. And it wasn't until we did some other educational groups and went to some other networking events that we realized, oh, we're not charging that much by luxury pricing standards. This would have been 3 or 4 years ago, and we started at 8,400 then, and we were probably averaging 10 to 15. I haven't actually sat down and crunched the numbers in a long time, but I think our average booking was usually between 10 to 15. And so we felt like, oh yeah, that's expensive for video, right? And then we learned, no, not in the luxury sector. It's not. And so we, at that point, jumped to a starting price of 10, which wasn't a huge jump, but we're like, let's just test the waters. And we said every 3 bookings, we'll raise our prices. And so we booked 3 easily at 10, and we booked 3 easily at 14. And so that's when we said, well, let's really push it, and let's go to 19.5 and make it multi-day and see how that does. And so pretty out of the gate still booked well. And that's one reason, even though we're sitting on this weird year of not being booked up, we're like, I feel like we're riding out just this weird period, but we've booked enough at this price point to not feel like we need to lower it.
Yeah. It's tested. It works.
Yeah.
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 You just need
Yeah.
to wait for a normal year. Totally. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm kind of very similar in the way I changed my pricing structure over time.
Mhm.
I'm not really like the raise my price one time a year kind of girl. I'm like a
Yeah.
push the boundaries, see if it works,
Mhm.
reinvent. And I think it's a great way to approach pricing if you like to live on a little bit of the edge. I feel like, because it's like it's almost this like adrenaline rush of like, what's gonna happen, you know?
Uh-huh. It
I
can
love
be
that.
nerve-wracking, yeah. But we've also had corporate work helping to fill in the gaps. And that's something we found too, is we used to get inquiries for corporate work that people talk about how a lot of luxury weddings book more last minute than lower. If it's a lower budget wedding, it's usually booking further out. That a lot of
Mhm.
luxury bookings will come in a short time span. And like our biggest booking to date was 36,000, and it came 3 months out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we're not like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do this year? But also we found that a lot of corporate work is last minute. We've had
Yes.
calls from corporate clients who are like, can you shoot this thing next week? And it ends up being a $5,000 job that took a couple of days. And it's stuff we used to have to turn away because our calendar was so jam-packed with so many weddings. And so that's the other reason we're like, even though this feels weird, we're not freaking out because we get these calls. Hi, corporate event in a week, in 2 weeks. So it is living on the edge because you can't
Yeah.
look at your full calendar and know this is what I have for the year. But
Yeah.
it's coming. Things are still coming that are filling in the gaps. They just come more last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see how the industry does shift and change as you grow. You're working with a completely different set of consumers and structures of how the events are being planned. I mean, some of their engagements are only 4 or 5 months because they
Yeah.
simply don't need 2 years to save for their wedding. Like that's just how it works. They can snap their fingers and
Mhm.
boom, it's done. So it's really interesting to learn that. And if you guys are listening to this podcast, we're just wrapping up our All-Star series. Rick and Sarah are kind of closing out that series, and we're
Scary.
about to relaunch our free workshop, The Road to Luxury. So if you haven't attended that yet, keep an eye out so that you can register, because that is all about really showing you guys what's possible in this industry. If you're listening to Sarah and saying $33,000 for a wedding, like holy moly, I want in. This is kind of the gateway to helping you achieve that. So keep an eye out. That's coming up in August. But Rick and Sarah, I would love to hear. So this whole concept of adapt or die, I love that. I feel like I take that to heart. So what are
Mhm.
maybe some of the biggest things in your business over the last 15 years that you really feel like were the big adapt moments to help you stay relevant, help your business grow? Because most people really do fizzle out around that 5-year mark, and you've tripled that. So
Yeah.
obviously it's working.
You wanna
Well,
go first?
yeah, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
just say
Okay.
I'm gonna go with a mistake. That
Okay.
was my
Mm.
fault.
Oh, I know what this
So
will be.
we come from a television background to where, you see like I did sports. So I shot sports on sidelines with a big camera on your shoulder and everything like that. So when we were shooting weddings, we had cameras that were somewhat similar with the eyepiece and that kind of thing. But the whole rage was DSLR and the Mark IIs. And
But that was like just starting when we were getting in, I feel like.
so I think we had been
Yeah.
maybe a year and a half, 2 years maybe in, and people are, Ray Roman's using.
It was only a year in.
Okay. It was only a year. Let's get that on the record. It was only a year. interchangeable lenses to make the depth of field the way it looks so pretty. And I had never touched a still camera before in my life. And so I was afraid to take that step into the unknown. And we were only on regular cameras for maybe another year and a half before
we were making a decision to sell our tape cameras.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go from tape to DSLR, and he didn't feel comfortable with DSLR. Right. And so instead we went to a good old trusty Panasonic HMC 150. So still a video camera, but switching from tape to card. But that we were making this decision, and I wanted to do DSLR, and he was like, no, we don't know anything about that.
So I guess the whole point of the story is to, yes, you may be afraid to do something that's unknown, but do some research. I mean, really don't be afraid of the unknown, embrace it, learn it, and move forward, because I think that was another big jump in the quality of footage, definitely, that we made in our business once we went from just regular video cameras to a DSLR format. And I wish we'd have done it sooner, and it's my bad.
No.
My fault. My fault.
We got there, we got there eventually. And technology changing, though, is a big part of it. I don't know that this is one big thing so much as a constant. Well, we talked about this a little earlier. There's the joke about creatives, like when you're in the creative process while you're editing, it's like, this is going to be the best wedding I've ever done. And then you get into it and you're like, this sucks. And then it's, I suck. And then it's, I'm terrible, I'm going to quit. And then it's, no, okay, maybe I can make this work. And then it's, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It is the best video I've ever made. And like this whole process we go through, I feel like we do that in our businesses too. That's not just like on this edit or on this project. You will have seasons in your business where you feel like you are killing it, and you're at the top, and you're at the top of your game, and you're going to do this forever, and you're going to love this forever, and it's going to be so great. And then you'll have a season where you'll go, what am I doing wrong? It's never a feeling of I've made it, but it's still, you will just have these major highs, and then you will have lows too. And a lot of it does come with the fact that you never stop learning. And I know we talk about that sometimes from a big picture perspective, but I'm even talking about specific changes in technology. I was really good at glide cam, and we would have people talk about that. They're like, man, you are really great with that glide cam. And I was so proud of how good I was at that. And now you have gimbals, and it's like, so this thing that set us apart at one point no longer does, because gimbals make it so easy to get that smooth movement without all that practice you had to do with steady cams and glide cams. The same thing for pulling focus. We would have people be like, you nail it when people walk down the aisle. How do you do that? And we went out in a parking lot one day with Rick and the other shooters we had at the time, from before he had left his job. So we had a team of other people who worked with me when he couldn't. We went out in a parking lot and we took turns walking lines to practice pulling focus and nailing focus. And then we would surprise people with something to practice pushing focus. Like if it's a bouquet toss and you're pushing and you want to nail it, yep, from the bride to the girls catching it. We practice these things so much.
And you took pride in it.
Yes.
Too. I mean, you took pride in the fact that I could get a bride going from the end of the aisle to the front of the aisle.
In a massive Catholic cathedral, yeah.
And maybe
never lose. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say maybe lose focus once or twice, but then get it back.
You nailed it.
And you're at like
keeping it
2.0.
real. So funny.
Yeah. Also, just to dial this back for the youngins, we're talking about before autofocus days.
Yeah. Well, yes. And yeah. Now we have autofocus. And so this thing that we spent so much time practicing and perfecting, and had people being like, how do you guys nail that every time? Like, because we work our butts off. You don't have to now.
Yeah. And I think I even
focus and cameras is so good now.
I think I still pushed and pulled focus on the processional, even after we had the touch focus on our cameras for maybe a little while. And then I shot a wedding with a friend, and I was like, well, I'm just going to make his wedding the guinea pig.
That's funny.
And here come the bridesmaids, and I didn't have to do a thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, this is pretty cool.
And so, it makes life easy, but it also takes the things that helped you stand out before. And now that's not going to help you it's leveled the playing field for so many people. And so you're having to look at your relationships, your body of work, the things you do, and go, what do I have to do now to stand out? Because the stuff that helped me stand out before is easy now. It doesn't take a lot of practice. It doesn't or if any, it doesn't take the amount of work it used to take. So you're constantly reevaluating how you are presenting yourself in a room, how you're presenting yourself at a wedding, and the work you're putting out, and going, what can I do now to stand out? Because the things that did make us stand out before aren't hard anymore, or they're normal now. Like I remember one of the first times we spoke at a convention and I talked about sound design and using sound effects, and not like crazy stuff, not like the funky clicks and pops, whatever. I'm just talking about crickets, ambiance, wind. And people are like, you mean you're pulling in, like you're actually going and getting, yeah. And that was like a big deal then. And that's standard in our industry now. All these things have made their way into the industry that used to not be a big deal. So there's the aspect of what you did before that made you stand out no longer does. There's also the aspect of relearning, like going back to glide cam. I was really good at that. I'm not that great at gimbal, even though it's easy in terms of smooth movement. I had my system for how I moved my hands to get certain shots, and that's changed a little bit. And I know I said something to you guys about this, and I won't get on like this total long tangent, but so people understand this isn't just our industry. This happens everywhere. So Rick and I are NASCAR fans, and that's our fun little, little redneck hobby of ours. And this might be another one that we have to explain to anyone of a certain age. I don't know, but a standard transmission on a car used to be like an H pattern. So to go from first to second, you pull back. To go from second to third, you push forward, and then back again to go from third to fourth. Well, 2-3 years ago, NASCAR introduced a new shifter that is, you just tap back anytime you want to shift up, and you just tap forward anytime you want to shift down. And you have these legendary drivers in this sport talking about how they are having to relearn. And some of them are even like blowing their engine because out of habit, they're pushing the shifter a certain direction, wanting to shift up, and it's actually shifting down. And so you have these people who are just at the top of their game at their industry, and they're in the exact same position where they're completely having to relearn something, and something they were really good at before now doesn't matter. So it happens in all aspects of life, and you have to be willing to learn and adapt. And
I think that's the nature of the
grow.
trailblazer, like you always are. If you want to be on the forefront of something, then you always are finding that next thing, because that's just how it works, especially with social media. Like people catch on to things like wildfire. And if you want to stay ahead of it, then it's finding the things. I actually like, you guys are NASCAR. I'm looking at like Taylor Swift, and I'm like, she put on like the most crazy tour. She's still on it, over a year later. And, I think it'll go down in history as being the first of its kind, but I think it'll, people will start touring the same way that she is and releasing the double albums and like all these things, but she'll find something else to trailblaze. And the same as you guys, like finding something new to trailblaze in the industry, to stay ahead of things, to stay relevant, to stay standing out, really. So you had mentioned really quickly a few minutes ago how some people will, you kind of described it almost as a roller coaster, I feel like. So not only through the edit, but through business of like, oh, I suck, I should quit. Wait, actually, I'm really, really good. Like, do you have any tips for those who are maybe experiencing the lows right now? They're feeling like, is this even worth it? I'm no good, whatever. Like, what would you say to that person?
One of the things that hit me over the past couple of years was I've never been someone who tried. Anyone who's seeing this on video is getting a lot of fun with the cats, by the way. I don't consider myself like a follow the trends. I've got to follow the trends. In fact, there are a lot of things that I was like, I'm never doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to follow this trend. But in some small aspects, going from a more everything's real time. We've always been big on emotion. Our films are very big on emotion, but it's almost like we went too hard into the stuff that quite honestly went viral on YouTube, just all those crying moments and really, really deep emotional. And I love it. But we had a legacy client come back recently for their 10th anniversary and went, hey, is there any chance we could have you like re-edit something for us for Instagram now? Because we weren't doing that 10 years ago. We weren't making reels 10 years ago. And so they hired us to make this, little re-edit reel for them for their 10th anniversary. And in pulling up their video, I kind of had this like moment of, And this goes back to that time period when we had like this stretch of just feeling like we were really taking off. And it was almost this reminder of getting back to what really makes you you. And I don't feel like we've ever like fully lost that, but there might have been a time where we were trying so hard to lean in to certain things that we lost a little bit of what put us where we were to begin with and what we really loved and a certain approach to our editing. So I would say if you need to go back, think back on if there was a wedding you were really excited about, even if maybe your shooting wasn't the best or the technology wasn't the best, no matter how long ago it was, go back and watch that again. I think you'll be surprised at how you feel looking at your work from 10, 11, 12, however many years ago it might be, and go, okay, this is what I really loved. And I want to get back to some of that. Even if you feel like you're still being true to yourself, it is easy to slip into things that you think the industry wants to see.
I think it's easy too to kind of fall into a rut of doing the same stuff, to not shooting the groom getting ready the same way, or shooting the reception, the first dances, whatever, all that kind of stuff the same way. Especially if you're working in the same venues all the time, it's hard to kind of get outside yourself and see it for the first time.
Autopilot can really take over.
Yeah.
Right. And I would just say,
excuse me,
to try not to get into that rut and keep pushing forward and push your creativity, push your mind, and just think about how can I do it differently, and that's, I think I myself have got into that rut a couple times and had to, Sarah's had to slap me a few to jumpstart me back into a new mindset. And I think it's helped, but not the slapping part, but
there's no slapping. There's no slapping. There was something else I was going to say. Okay. Oh, no, you're good. But not, to recognize too, there's a difference between falling into, I don't know. It's okay to have a, for lack of a better word, templated approach going into things with a certain plan. Just always be ready to adapt if something changes, be looking at things with a creative eye. But I do think in the video world, we are hard on ourselves sometimes if every video is not better than the last. We get down on ourselves if we're not always making the most killer piece of art every single time. And sometimes you just aren't given the material to do that. And you can still make a video that your clients are going to love because it's a fantastic video of their wedding, even if it's not going to be like this major portfolio contest award-winning showpiece. And so there is a balance between, no, don't just start doing this stuff on mindless repeat, but also don't be hard on yourself. Don't feel like you're in a rut if you've had a few weddings that haven't been like that major creatively inspiring kind of thing. Because admittedly, that I would say is maybe the rut I got in, where we had a certain number of weddings in a row where wonderful people, wonderful humans, love them to death, but maybe we just, there was one toast, they barely said anything, they didn't do personal vows, it wasn't a lot of emotion. And we had a few in a row like that where I was like, I feel like I'm not doing a good job. But it wasn't that we weren't doing a good job. They loved it. They loved what they got. We just felt that way because we have such high standards for the kind of work we want to put out. But you can't help it if the client's not, bawling as the bride walks down the aisle, or the toast aren't the most hilarious or most heartfelt, or, whatever it may be. That's not on you. So don't let yourself get in a rut either. If you are looking at other videographers, if you're comparing yourself, if you're seeing what other people are putting out there and going, man, this doesn't look like this doesn't feel like this, put your client first and continue to serve your client well. And you will still have those weddings that you're like, okay, this is what I am going to kill it on and put out there. But yeah, don't let yourself get down or feel depressed either, just because maybe you're not producing something that in your mind is like the next great art piece.
So good. You guys are just speaking so much words of wisdom right now. I know that listeners are probably feeling I hope that like if you're feeling the weight of the wedding season and it's not quite the season that you were hoping for, hopefully
Mhm.
this is like helping lift your spirits and know that we all kind of have those years. I think last year, and I will say you tend to have those years too when you open yourself up to new awareness of the industry. So like I think if when you feel like you're doing it all and everything's coming into play for you and everything's great and amazing, sometimes it's because you've gotten a little bit comfortable in like what you're shooting and you haven't really been
Mhm.
pushing yourself further and further. And I think I kind of came out of that as we know, like with COVID and rebookings, like 2022 was insane,
Mhm.
2021 and 2022. And I very much went into autopilot because I kind of had to. We were like all of a sudden shooting like 20 events in like 4 months. Again,
Ugh.
it was insane. Um, and so then coming into 2023, I kind of took a break, did like I needed to break that cycle. And then I had a new awareness of like setting new goals, which I think is so important. Do
Mhm.
you guys like kind of have like a sit down every year and like hash out new goals for your business?
We're not great about honestly sitting down and like, right. We're not the people who sit down and go, we're having that meeting. But yes, we will talk about like, this is what I want to achieve this year. And this is where I want to push ourselves this year. And you said something too that really spoke to what one of the things I think happened to us when we did our big price jump, when you talked about a new awareness of things. And we had a season where we had some of the last minute bookings that were higher price weddings, but then we still had some of the bookings that had booked us a year and a half out now falling in the same season. And it was a weird feeling of we would go from this, multi-million dollar over the top destination wedding to something that was, very pretty, but very simple. And we're like, I don't know what to shoot. I am looking for things to shoot. This is a struggle now. And I'm learning too about certain things. Like fully admit, we didn't know for the longest time that a lot of high-end planners, well, most high-end planners, but we didn't experience this at home, don't want ice in the glass when you're shooting details and like all these little things that we didn't know for the longest time mattered to anyone. And so now we're seeing those things too, and we're out there trying to line up chairs better and do all these things because we're working a wedding with um, again, wonderful clients, wonderful humans, but maybe the team that's on the wedding isn't striving for a certain
Yeah.
level of perfection. And
Yeah.
so, yes, as you grow, if you still have some of those weddings that you booked back at a previous price point or, from a previous referral source who maybe now can't refer you at the price point you're at, you will have these weird feelings of, I feel like I don't have enough to shoot. So, am I doing a good enough job? Because you're aware now of these other things you weren't aware of before. So, that's a really good point, too, that as you learn new things, you will start to see stuff at weddings and go, oh,
Mhm.
okay. I didn't know that was important, or I didn't know I should do that. And you, quite frankly, be prepared. You might get pushback from other vendors too, if they aren't on the same journey you are.
It's very true. I had one
Yeah.
last year and the planner wanted to jump on a call and I had looked at her Instagram previously and this was very much one that you guys have talked about too, where you were the splurge, we were the splurge on this
Mhm.
event. And we got on the call and I had seen in her portfolio on her social media that there was glasses filled with ice and water, things like that that you now have a new awareness of. There was
Mhm.
heaters out for the detail shots, things like that. So when we got on the call, I just very gently kind of wanted to like say like, okay, I can see at this time is when it's scheduled for us to shoot the reception space. It would be so ideal if we could hold off on placing butter, salt and pepper, shakers, hold off
Mhm.
on the heaters until after we've already shot the space. And also, if possible, like water service, like them waiting to fill the waters until we've shot the space. And like her mind was blown. She was like,
Mhm.
I've never had anyone request this before. Like, not that I think that it was like a blend of like, I felt like slightly annoyed, yet also kind of mind blown at the same time
Yes.
of like, I'm like, am I being high maintenance? Like, I don't think I'm being high maintenance. It's just a new awareness of the level of planners that
Mhm.
now we've been working with, and it opened our eyes to just a new expectation of greatness.
Yeah, it's
Shameless
not being high
plug. Hold on.
maintenance. But no, go ahead.
We have a shameless plug in our shop. We have an elevated shot list. So if you are listening to this and you're like, I also didn't know that water and ice in glasses mattered. You can hop over to thelevelupco.com/shop and grab our elevated shot list, and it walks through all the details throughout the whole day and how to maximize all of your imagery and how to kind of shift things, what to look out for, all those good things. So grab that.
Yeah.
People
Can
have
you
been
repeat
loving
that
it.
again?
Sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
it's
interrupt.
Yeah. No, but it's you will find it's not being high maintenance when you are working with a team who all has the same goal in mind. They will see that and appreciate that. They will see you straightening those chairs or straightening that flatware and be so appreciative that you're doing it. But we've had people get offended too, and we've had catering teams that are like, "Did we not do a good enough job?" And it's like, guys, this is
Yeah, the
not.
caterers don't always like it.
Yeah, that's. I think that's where you'll get the most pushback is from a catering team. And the issue is, they do have, it's a very stressful job. I get it. And they're usually working with, it's not always the same people. Oftentimes they're bringing in hourly people to work as servers a lot, depending on the company, the venue. Um, but that's one of those things too, that comes down to the planner you're working with, because no, we can't control a catering team, but a planner who has that same vision will tell the catering staff, whoever's in charge, don't place this until this time, don't pour this until this time. And yeah, we've seen, without naming names, we worked with a very high-end photographer once on a wedding where there were a lot of people on the team who just aren't used to that expectation. It's big money at home, and I appreciate, when I say at home, I mean a lot of like our country weddings where there's big money, there's oil money, but it's people who are very laid back and very easygoing, and I appreciate that in a personality. Like I love that in a person. But in a vendor team, can we still please have a certain expectation? And they just don't. And one time we had this photographer telling the catering staff they had to go out and scoop all the ice out of all the glasses for like 150 people, because they're like,
wow.
I can't photograph this. You have to go get the ice out of those glasses before I will photograph this. And that, yeah, that didn't go over really well. I don't know that I ever would have been bold enough to ask that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a big wedding with a big name photographer, and they were like, no, you should not. I get that you're trying to be like ahead of schedule, but no, this is our time to shoot details, and you shouldn't have done that. And you need to go take all the ice out of all those glasses.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to like bridge the gap too when you are working with just different levels of events, right? And different levels of planners. To kind of realize like when it's okay to slightly let things go, and then when it's time for us to like take initiative and kind of say like, actually, no, we need to like be better and do things a little bit
Yeah.
differently. Because it's the same thing, just as how it's so easy for us to turn autopilot on, it's very easy, I think, for a planner to turn their autopilot on. And if that means letting the catering staff put down their butter dishes and the salt and pepper and fill those water glasses with no problems, it's probably easy just to be like, it's fine, it'll be good enough type of thing. But I think that's really the true differentiation between the mainstream market, the lovely market, but now stepping into the luxury market is like no detail is left unturned, and that the execution is going to be just at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so
Good enough isn't good enough anymore.
Yes.
totally. Yeah. Cool.
Amazing. Well, we are going to wrap this up out of respect for your guys' time. This has been an incredible conversation, and I think we might have to have you guys back for a part 2, because we could just keep talking and talking.
I feel
and
bad.
talking.
I'm like, I feel like we barely touched on so many of the things that we wanted to say, but it was so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you online so they can watch your beautiful work, connect with you, all those good things?
We are pretty much anywhere. We are Pin Weddings. I think Facebook, it's Pin Weddings Films, but then Instagram, Pin Weddings, 1 N, just like a pin you write with, PEN Weddings. Same for website, pinweddings.com. And I'll say a little shout out too. We do have an Instagram subscription, but to be fully honest with people, we got it set up. We started going and then ran into some things, some health issues with my mom, some stuff that just kind of derailed us on that. And so I feel bad for like the lack of content we've put out on our subscription on Instagram lately, but I want people to know we have been working on new content, and we'll have a bunch more coming on there soon. Cause yeah, I feel bad for our subscribers who are probably like, hey, so where's all that great Instagram content? So there is more coming. And I mean, by the time that this actually airs, please, yeah, hop on, because there will be a lot of great new stuff by then.
The
Go learn from
content will
them. They're
be,
a wealth of knowledge.
they
Yes.
are, the content will be overfloweth. Amazing. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you so much, Rick and Sarah. Again, it's such a joy to have you guys on and kind of wrapping up our All-Star series that we've done over the summer. We hope that listeners have really loved this series as well. And we hope that you guys will keep an eye out for our free workshop coming up, The Road to Luxury, in August.
Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. Please help us reach more filmmakers and photographers like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it to social media. And don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.